Hey. I was on Twitter, UFUCT2, and I was observing a tweet by the ACLU, I believe it was in Vermont, and they were petitioning for prisoners' rights and saying that prisoners shouldn't be held in solitary confinement, and that was cruel and unusual. And it got me thinking, I wonder how many of those people at the ACLU have ever spent time in jail, because I've spent time in jail. And when someone was taken to solitary confinement, I was pretty happy with it, because it usually meant they were kicking both feet against the thick glass of the cell and yelling all night long, keeping the other prisoners in misery and basically being unruly. Many of the prisoners just want to keep their own peace. They want to serve their time. They want to get out. But these prisoners that just want to make it difficult to everyone, they're the ones that end up going to solitary confinement. So it's kind of up to the prisoner whether or not they go based on their behavior. So it's kind of bullshit, in my opinion, for the ACLU to be spending so much time trying to fight for these prisoners' rights from solitary confinement. So the ACLU is definitely not an organization that is fighting for equality. You know, you take the concept of alimony. If you even think about that concept and the constitutional right to life, liberty, and property, it shall not be taken by due process of law, they are so ignoring the slavery that is going on. They're ignoring people going to jail for not being a slave to another person. It's completely wrong. And the ACLU is fighting all these stupid, unnecessary fights that actually are contrary to the laws, they're contrary to their purpose. They're not achieving their objectives. So helping out employees that are in solitary confinement is really not going to help anyone. Solitary confinement actually helps other employees, because or not employees, excuse me, all prisoners, because if one unruly prisoner can put a whole block of prisoners on lockdown, that's like 36 prisoners are on lockdown. They can be in lockdown all day long because one dumbass prisoner has to kick the glass, throw their shit on the grass, throw food, or do something that causes the guards to have to lock everyone down because they're afraid there's going to be some violence or something. And here the ACLU is fighting for the rights of these prisoners who are being put into solitary confinement. Like, really? Really? How about ACLU? How about you fight for the rights of the people who are made slaves? People like me, law-abiding citizens who, in my case, my ex-spouse had an affair with a convicted child rapist, destroyed the family, destroyed the marriage, and now I've been held in contempt of court. Even after I've had a 50% decline in income, I've been held in contempt of court, and I'm going to jail for not paying her. Marriage is a contract, so that's the way they treat it, as though you have a contractual obligation to this other person to support them. But what the courts are doing is they're ignoring the normal remedies that are available to a contract. Breach of contract, the fact that these contracts aren't in writing. When you go in to a court and they want to assess alimony, There's no contract provision they're looking at. They can just pull whatever they want out of their butt and say, you have to pay for this many years. You never conceded to it in writing. You never agreed to it. But in some cases they'll say, oh, your marriage license, that's your written approval that you agree the courts can do it. But the courts are acting like there's a big open blank check, and that's not right. I never agreed to be married, and if my marriage didn't end, I didn't agree to pay her for the rest of my life. In fact, it's opposite. If the courts are going to be enforcing a contract, in my case, my agreement was once my youngest child starts going to school, you work full-time and contribute to me. So I was supposed to financially benefit from the time my child went into grade school, and that's right the time where she had her sexual relations with a convicted child rapist and destroyed the family. And so now I'm being forced to suffer the consequences, to pay her for the rest of my life. I've been sent to jail, and all over an agreement that wasn't enforced in my favor at all, that didn't exist because it wasn't in writing, but has been enforced in her favor, a contract that did not exist. And this is not the America. So who is protecting our life, liberty, or property when it comes to this? Certainly not the ACLU. The ACLU is not concerned about equality. They are not concerned about what's a right or wrong. They're concerned about whatever thing makes them pissed off at the time, and it's usually bullshit that doesn't make sense. It's usually something that's not really something that's a problem. So anyway, here's my challenge to the ACLU. Pull your head out. You are the Civil Liberties Union. You are there to protect people's constitutional rights. That's what the organization started out to do. You should be protecting me. You should not be protecting those prisoners that are throwing their shit on the glass. You should not be protecting women who have no basis to steal another person's life, liberty, or property. If the state wants to support them, go there. Shame on us if we vote for it, but if we vote for people who make laws that support them, that's our fault. We voted them, we put them there. That's socialism. I don't necessarily agree with socialism, but socialism can kind of creep in through us, and it's our own fault because it's who we vote for. So I don't like socialistic practices, but I can't complain because we're not putting better people in front of us, and we're not protecting those rights. Alimony, however, is not socialist as much as it is communist. It's communist in that the state assumes they own your property. This God-given right to life, liberty, property is just thrown out the window, and the state says, forget that. We own you, and we will do with you and your life, liberty, or property however we see fit. So if the ACLU really wants to do what they should be doing, this is as big as African American slavery, black slavery, whatever you want to say. This is as big as women's rights. This is slavery, and this is the issue of our time. So that's my plea to the ACLU. If you really want to be the organization you claim to be, then be it, and end this alimony BS now.